back in September of 2020, I had Colby Blaine join the podcast to talk about the College of Idaho men's basketball program. Well, since that time, Colby and the College of Idaho men's program have won 2 national championships. He's earned the Coach of the Year award for the NAIA. They've had a lot of success in the program since that time. And today I'm bringing him back on the show because I look up to him as a leader, as a coach, as a mentor. I think he's phenomenal at what he does. So today we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to unpack his whole entire, the last couple of years, some of his best memories, what he's noticed about certain teams and the differences in the dynamic between teams. We'll talk about recruiting and what he looks for. We'll talk about the AAU scene. We'll talk about highlight film. So if you're a basketball player, what do you put in your highlight film? We're going to talk about being vulnerable and what he's working on with a growth mindset, what he's going to work on in his personal life to be able to have a better emotional connection with his program, with his team. We're also going to talk about handling success, right? Once you have success, how do you handle that success? How does the incoming class handle that success of the graduating class and what they had, and the previous classes? Like, how do you handle that success in a program when you've won 2 national championships in a matter of 3 years and you want to sustain that? How do you do that? We're going to talk to him about that as well. So I'm really excited for this one. I'm super grateful for him taking the time out of his day to join us. So make sure to tap into this one. This is the Gametime Guru. So
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. Super excited for this one. Man, we were just chatting about it right before we started recording. Man, we had this interview in September of 2020. And since that time, I'm bringing on Colby Blaine, coach of the College of Idaho National Champions as of this year. But we have a lot to talk about. Since the time that we talked the time we spoke the first time, so much has happened for you and your coaching world, the program in which you're part of, everything. So I'm really excited to bring you on. I'm excited to chat with you. I know there's a lot of people on my listener base now that's grown that are going to love listening to what you have to say. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you, Colby. Thanks for joining the show, man.
Yeah, you bet. I'm excited to be here. There's something about the second go around that makes it a little exciting. We got a new haircut since 5 years ago. We've got some national championships to talk about. You've got thousands of more followers to listen and enjoy. So yeah, this is pretty cool to be back.
I love it. I love the circle up and coming back and just chatting it up, man. So let's talk about that. Just won a national championship for the second time since I had spoken to you the last time. And so championship runs that you've had, a lot of people in the Valley have heard about you. They've heard about the program. They kind of know what's going on over there, what you've built or what you've continued to build and what you are putting in over there. But I want to know about these championship runs and even the runs you've had in the Fab Four, Elite Eight, making it over there and taking your talents on a national level. What about this last run though, Colby? What was it about this team that was able to get them to play at a championship level?
Yeah, well, I like the way you phrased that and about wanting to know about the run and the tournament because we all see it as a full season, right? We played 37 games, but there's so many different pockets of that season, and we want to be good at all of them. And then you get to the tournament and it's a 6-game run. It doesn't matter as long as you get there. It doesn't matter what you've done previous to that, as long as you get in the tournament. And so we're always, our whole season is always about putting us in the best position to have the most success when we get to the tournament. But I think what was so special about this group was that everybody hit their stride. Everybody played their best basketball of their entire season when we got to the final site at Kansas City. And that was maybe the most rewarding thing to watch. Is just all the confidence and then everybody just executing, which was just a complete belief in all the things that we had, worked on and developed throughout our season. That was extremely rewarding. And then the results followed, which was even, more cool to watch what we were capable of when we put it all together.
I love that. I mean, I think in athletics, it's sometimes you got to get hot at the right time. It seems like you guys were pretty consistent across the board, but we've seen multiple times programs. I mean, I'm an Ohio State fan, so let's talk football for a quick second, right? They hit the college football playoff after having a terrible loss to Michigan at the end of the season, but they hit their stride right when it was important to hit one of the more, one of the more historic runs in college football history. And I think it just shows that sometimes if you don't hit not everybody has a great run. You have to play a good game pretty much every game in that tournament run. And you guys were able to do that. I want to pick your brain on that though, is from a preparation standpoint. I have a lot of athletes that listen to this, especially high school athletes that listen to the podcast and their parents for that matter. But every time you guys get to the tournament, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure, I want to watch how they prepare. Because a lot of teams will get shell shocked. Some players get shell shocked when the spotlight hits them and they're in a different environment and whatnot. I guess, how do you guys go about preparing? What have you noticed about your players and even yourself as a coach in the preparation for the big games, right? You finished the season, now you're in tournament time. What goes into preparation so that they don't get shell shocked, so they can still play their game and not buckle when the lights come on?
Yeah, well, we feel really confident kind of in our roadmap to prepare for exactly what you're asking and talking about. My first year, 2018-19, we make the Final Four of the NAIA basketball tournament, and we get beat. I think we ended up getting beat by 12 or 14, but we were down 20 at halftime. And it was it was beyond frustrating to be down that much at halftime, right? You just knew you were pretty much out of the game at that point. So we come back from that game, we sit down as a program, and we discuss why were we in that position. And a lot of the guys were saying, hey, coach, we were fatigued mentally and physically, right? And so we started to work through that, which, is totally, to get to the Final Four is pretty hard, right? So it's like, okay, you didn't do anything wrong, but the fact is we were fatigued. We had played 3 games in 4 days up to that. So had our opponents. But we went backwards and we started saying, okay, what were we doing? We were taking rest days where we didn't do any physical activity whatsoever. We were going to the pool instead of lifting. I think emotionally, we had decompressed when we made the Final Four because we were excited to be there, right? So now, fast forward through these last couple of years, we were a program on a mission, and specifically this year, we lift harder. I believe we lift harder than anybody in the country towards the end of the season. After Christmas, we never skip a weights ever. And our guys actually feel better. If we need to get rid of a practice, I will get rid of a practice if that means we need to lift weights, right? It's not to say that we don't find our rest time, but we want to increase our strength, because the NAIA basketball tournament is 4 games in 5 or 6 days, depending on your seed. When you get to the final site, that's a lot. So physically, I think we were in the best physical shape, conditioning wise, which we practice hard. We commit to getting up and down the court and conditioning in our practices after Christmas, and then strength wise in the weight room, right? I think that's part of the journey for us to be ready at the tournament. I think the other part is that we really talk a lot about, and I just kind of said this term, not letting our minds decompress. We want to win the national championship. Now, that, again, doesn't mean that we don't enjoy our 10 days in Kansas City. We take our breaks and we go to dinner and we slow down and we enjoy. But never do we show a sign that we are happy to be in the next game. When we actually, something I've really enjoyed, and this is kind of how we keep this mentality up, we hand out an itinerary for our road trip. And so we left on March 17th at 10 a.m. We get on the bus. We went downtown to Bacon with Gibson Berryhill, who he hosts us for lunch, right? And then we hit the airport. And that itinerary started with us leaving campus. And it was detailed hour by hour all the way through to March 25th at 9 p.m., which was us cutting down the nets on the main court. So as a player, you have a 9-day itinerary that says this is what we're doing. We're going to the end. We're celebrating this championship, right? So physical strength and then that mental, perseverance is, I think, been big for us.
That's a huge, huge point right there for both of those things. I guess I'll continue on and unbox that a little bit too. At the collegiate level, it's interesting because I'm coaching club basketball. At the time of this recording, I'm coaching what we call the unsigned seniors, and we have an unsigned seniors. We have 2 teams that I'm coaching, and a couple of those guys will go play junior college basketball. They're good hoopers, but it's interesting, Colby. I'm noticing a lot in the last 2 years, especially, is not a lot of these kids are lifting weights consistently in high school. At least the
Mhm.
basketball players. I mean, football players, you'll get the weightlifting, but the basketball players they're not focused a lot on their strength training. And I don't know what it is. I don't know, but I guess as a college coach, one that coaches at a high level like yourself, and you're obviously lifting throughout the season, and you're putting that as a focal point for the team. What would your recommendation be, and your insights be to these high school players that might be listening to this, like to get into the weight room? Like, what do they need to be doing? How else can I tell them that other than just like saying, hey, it's going to be physical at the next level?
Yeah. Well, I tell all of our incoming freshmen, do more than you think. Whatever you're doing, do more than it. And it's hard to even explain to your freshmen coming in like what they can do. A lot of times we just want them doing something in the weight room. If you got a coach that you work with, we try to lock them in on nutrition. But I think a lot of it is the why, right? And it's a lot of 17, 18-year-olds in high school know about lifting. They have a class, right? But until you really dial in your why, it's hard to be consistent and it's hard to really hold yourself accountable. And there's a lot of different whys to do it. One of the things that we notice in college is high school seasons are 3.5 months long if you play well, right? It's usually Thanksgiving to the early parts of March. College seasons are 7 months. That's 2 times as much, right? You look at the college to NBA, college they're playing 35 games, NBA they're playing 80 some, right? So you need another level of strength to be able to get through the demands, right? Being able to get to practice and compete at a high level every day and be consistent. If your body hurts, your mind, is going to probably tell you to shut it down too. So there's a big why. A lot of guys don't realize that until they go through their freshman year, and then they get in the weight room more, right? But I think the other part too is, you can tell them it's going to be physical, but it's physical. Like if an athlete doesn't understand that, they're going to learn the hard way. When you're playing with 20, I had 8 seniors this year, 22 to 23 years old. Those guys are physical. And then as you get to the end, so we don't just want to play a good season. We want to win the dang thing, right? When you get to the tournament, those refs do not call anything, and they shouldn't. They shouldn't call anything. It is so physical in there. Guys it's a war. And so you've got to be physically strong to be able to battle in there and then not get emotionally out of sync.
No, I love that, man. I love that. They're not calling it. So I guess that goes, hey, if you're playing AAU basketball, you can prep for the tournament for NAIA
Yes,
if they're not calling nothing. So
that's exactly right. Yes.
fantastic. Yeah, we got to love the refs. So Colby, what's one thing I want to ask you as a coach, myself, one thing I'm trying to work on in the last 5 years of coaching is holding like my composure under pressure. And I'll give you an example. And this is one of the things I really enjoy watching you coach because of your ability to do so. You can get passionate just like anybody else, but you keep your composure under pressure. Just like you ask the players to, stay mentally locked in, and when just stay dialed in. Don't let the emotions get the best of you. Sometimes I feel as a coach, I'm getting better at it, but like I get frustrated, whether it's the referees or if it's a bad, like we take a bad shot or we do something, and all of a sudden we're in crunch time, and I find myself almost like my mind's not focused anymore. I'm having a hard time, like how many fouls do we have? How many, like, what's the time on the clock? How many timeouts I got left? It starts to spin for some reason. I'm trying to like stay composed. Now I've gotten a lot better at it, but I want to ask your opinion and like your insights, being able to do it at that level. How do you control your emotions as a coach? How do you make sure that you're staying poised and controlled even under the heavy pressures?
Yeah, well, that's a great question that brings up a lot of vulnerable. I need to be pretty vulnerable here. I'll tell you this. I get asked all the time to talk about leadership and, maybe be part of leadership conferences and whatnot. And I want to get up on that stage and look at everybody that's in there and say, I am not a very good leader. And I don't, and I really believe that. And the reason why I believe that is because I have extreme passion and I can get fired up. And you've seen me, like I can get extremely fired up. However, what I will say and what I will give myself credit on is I think I'm extremely self-aware, and my response time, I think, is getting better. Maybe my forgiveness time, like you mentioned, you start to lose track of fouls and what's the situation, and you can't think through that. Maybe being able to just forgive yourself and respond and communicate. And if you need to apologize, you apologize. If you need to stay, hold your ground. Like that's just being the self-aware part. And so I do things all the time where I mess up. every game, national championship game, we're up 20 points with 7 minutes to go, and I'm in a verbal argument with my player, my point guard Samaje, about his body language, and and I'm just looking at but long story short, I'm self-aware of it. He is too. We're able to communicate through it. Because we've been consistent all year. Every time that I have my energy, they know where that's coming from because I'm with it every day, right? So, we always have room to get better. I'm going to go into this AAU season with you, and I have goals to, continue to work on that part of my game. But again, you don't have to be a perfect leader. Just be self-aware of what you're doing, and then figure out how to fix that so that you can move on quickly and just get a little better each game. I think you show that, and your players will really respect that.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm taking notes of that one. I appreciate you. The new era of athletics, man, it's crazy. NIL is a thing going on. I want to ask you though, for those who may not have heard this, maybe you're new to listening, or within the last 5 years, you're new to listening to this show. We talked about College of Idaho specifically, and a lot of NAIA schools. They're a little bit more expensive, better education most of the time. It comes with the price you pay. It's a different type of a university than that you would get of like a different, like a 4-year university that's a public school or whatever. Like NAIA schools, it's a little different. It's a different culture. However, NIL is still out there. Athletes can now capitalize off of their name, image, and their likeness. There's new rules now just going in with junior college athletics for athletes and so forth. So their clock doesn't technically start when they are in JUCO and all this stuff. So I'm curious how that's impacted you guys, or has it impacted you guys at the NAIA level for NIL and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and it's almost looks like the stock market, where this topic has, kind of come up really quick, and then there's all the downfalls, and then people are trying to figure it out into the next year, and it's kind of this up and down roller coaster. I think the big NIL that we all dream about that big $1 million contract, right? Well, that's only reality for a couple student athletes in all of college basketball, right? Reality, for most people, is small packages. And honestly, I don't know the percentage, but I'd probably tell you 70 to 80% of all college athletes at any level are not going to receive any NIL because it's just not feasible for local markets to support athletes like that. They'd rather donate to different places, and schools would need to spend their money in different areas. So the NIL has not overly hit our basketball realm a ton. Now we do have a card, a signing card. I actually have them right here. It's called On It Athlete. And so this is, I know us and some like Boise State football have this. You can buy these. 60% of the profit goes to our players on this. So,
oh, sweet.
So they all get a check at the end of the year, and it's their own NIL trading card deal, which is pretty cool. Athletes can get deals from different businesses and stuff, but it hasn't oversaturated our market yet. I will tell you, it's almost kind of worked in the reverse for us, where we've been able to really fundraise because people want to spend their money on the experience, and they want to help a team, the greater group of, the greater good of a group. I think a lot of people are starting to experience where they give their donations to one person for 1 year, and we're actually reaping the benefit because we're finding people that want to donate to a bigger picture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. The reason I was interested in it though is because like College of Idaho has some wealthy donors out there, like the alumni, like it's a successful school, like it produces good like citizens that are like successful. Whereas like the reality is some of the schools around the state of Idaho where I graduated from, we don't have a ton of millionaires. We got a couple here and there, but there's not like billionaires, super wealthy people coming in. So I wondered how like the collectives worked, or if there were, people that were able to donate to the programs. And so it does sound like it's a little bit different than what you'd see elsewhere, but it's also probably, like you said, it's better in the grand scheme of things, to be honest. The NIL thing is a very interesting topic because, like you said, it's like the stock market. And from the conversations I've had, especially as of late, there's a lot of donor fatigue right now. I mean, it's
Yes.
gotten 3 years down the road. Now, all of a sudden they're like, wait, we have to put in more. We got to put in more. Well, a lot of these schools don't have a lot of donors that have that much money to just keep forking out for players. And so they're starting to get donor fatigue. So I think we're about to see some shifts there as big time programs run out. The well runs dry sometimes. So
That's right.
That'll be interesting. Now, Colby, I want to ask you this. So you've had a couple of years of super successful runs, obviously 2 titles, and some really big runs in between that as well. Do you have a favorite memory out of all of those, or a favorite, like how does each team compare with one another? I just find it so awesome that you've been able to remain consistent, because every year it's like you lose a couple of big dogs, they're graduating, whatever it might be, you revamp, you reload, and then the next year is the same thing. The next year is the same thing. You keep doing it. So I'm just like curious if you have any favorite memories, any like what the dynamics between the teams were and so forth.
That's a great question, because I really do try to slow down and reflect on the good times. Everybody sees the games, but we spend only 2 hours, 37 times in those games throughout a year. And there's so many other things that we do. I mean, so, I do like to reflect on the retreats that we take, the meals we spend together, and watching the bonds. We do those things intentionally to bond the team, but there's always a moment of every season when you realize that the guys really want to do those things, that they're enjoying it, that if you don't do them, they'll actually be upset with you. Like, what do you mean we're not going to eat together? That's when you know that you've actually really hit your stride as a team. But I'll tell you, it was extremely rewarding to watch this team this year cut those nets down. And the reason why was 2 years ago when we won it, we didn't know what we didn't know. You're chasing a national championship when we won it the first time, and you didn't know. So you just put your head down and went to work. Well, having success brings so much more anxiety to your life, because you think so you're always trying to do what you did last year, and you're trying to be who you were before, because that's how you won, right? And so I think we noticed that the year after, so last 2 seasons ago, we did great. We had went 32-4. We made the Final Four. We were 1 minute away from making the Natty again. But that year we were just thinking with our heads too much. We were just doing what we did the year before. And this year, this team really committed to just leading with their heart and being who they were. And if you actually look at our team statistics, we were a bit different this year. We actually didn't rebound nearly as well this year as we did 2 years ago. But we were better in other areas, like taking care of the ball, pace of the game, and we bought into that. And so to see that work and just be who we were now, that was probably my favorite moment of realizing you don't have to do it how you did it in the past. You can be something different and still succeed.
I love that, dude. That's so cool, man. It's cool how each team is different. Like, one's not as good of a rebounding team, but you can still find a way to grind it out. I love that. And it's cool. Like, you've got to take credit for that, man. Like, that's why you're the coach of the year. That's why you are who you are. Like, you're able to get a team to figure that out. Not everything's cookie cutter and cut the same way. There's a lot of ways to win a game, and you figured that out. You know how to maximize every team's strengths, and I think it's super cool. That's not an easy thing to do. When we did our first interview, we discussed a little bit about recruiting, and some of my favorite clips that I've ever shared on social media were regarding what you said about recruiting and what you're looking for as a coach. Now, one thing you said, Colby, was that, for example, you had brought up parents. Like, when you're recruiting and stuff, you're looking at parents and how the parents react in games and so forth. I'm curious, almost 4.5 years later, if that's still something that you look at. Like, is there anything that you would like to tell the younger generation about recruiting purposes?
Yeah, I get your, your reels about every 6 months that one pops up about, your reputation and parenting and players and all that. And so it's always a good reminder to me about what I believe. And it's funny you ask that, because I'm literally reading a book right now called The Gift of Failure, and it's about parenting. And I'm reading it as a coach. Like, what do I need to know about how to help, raise these 16 young men that I'm working with every year, right? And I will tell you, I'm becoming more and more convinced with the more success we have that it starts within the family. Like, there's so many talented players in the country. You can pull players from every state, every city that are athletic, strong, fast, right? But we have found great success and with the inner circle, finding families that believe in the blue collar work ethic, that finding families that have allowed their student athletes, their sons or daughters, to fail and teach them how to deal with that failure, right? When you hit the court and you're trying to compete for a national championship, you are going to be under extreme adversity. Your insecurities are going to rise to the top. I mean, they're going to be exposed, right? I still have insecurities. We all do, right? And so what is your inner circle telling you? How have they taught you? What are the tools they've taught you to use to handle all that, right? If the message the second you get on the phone is, well, you should probably quit because coach was mad at you that you missed 3 shots tonight, we're not in good shape, right? If the message is, hey, get back in that gym, put your head down, go to work just like you did at home every day, you'll be fine, then you got a chance to be really, really good, right? And so it starts with the parents. It starts with the families. There's no question, in my book. And so we do really focus on where are they coming from and what's their support system going to say to them when they hit hard times.
I love that, man. I love it. It reminds me of Jerry Stackhouse too. When I had Stack on the show, I was talking to him and he talked about his mom's influence on him because he was going to quit at North Carolina. He was going to come home after his freshman year and he was done with it. And he called his mom. She's like, "You're not coming home." Like, "No, you're not." And like she got him to stay over there and did his thing. And obviously had a very successful 18-year career in the NBA. So it does start in the home. Colby, go ahead.
I want to share this with you really quick. We do a team retreat and we do this little game called 20 Questions. And there was 20 guys on our team this year. And you read one question and it could be as simple as like, have you ever owned a dog? And if you own the dog, you walk into the middle of the circle. And so you just see what you have in common with that person, right? Well, one of the questions was, have you ever considered quitting the College of Idaho basketball team? This was back in October, early season. We have 20 guys in our program, coaches and players. And I'm positive it was either 14 or 15 individuals walked into the middle of that circle. Have you ever considered quitting? Everybody's going to consider getting out of their hardest times, whether you're trying. I bet you considered quitting the podcast at some point, right? And I've considered getting out of coaching and doing something different when I hit those hard times. But what is your circle? Who are those who are mentoring you going to help you along? What are they going to do to help you? And so I'm not shocked when we hit hard times. It's just all about having people who will push you through it.
That's cool. You guys do that, man. That's cool. That's super, super cool. What were your thoughts when 14, 15 guys stepped in the middle? Like, was there any, or were you one of them that stepped in it too?
I was one of the few that stayed out of there. I hadn't thought about it, but we all kind of laughed, to be honest, but it was very relieving to be like, oh, I'm not alone. Yeah, I do. I have thought about this. This is okay. But I also didn't quit. I got back in there and I figured it out and I helped my teammates out along the way.
Dude, I might adopt that. Actually, by the way, that's a really cool activity to do. That's really cool.
One of the best things we do all year long.
I freaking love that idea. Okay, here's a question that's super important for us. I know, like I mentioned, a lot of the kids that I coach will most likely be junior college basketball players. That's kind of where they're at right now, and doesn't mean they can't get it to a 4-year later. But right now, they're probably looking at junior college level basketball. But I still believe you're around a lot of those coaches as well with coaching and around the country. You're in contact with a lot of those guys too. When you're a guard, which Idaho is full of them, we don't really have any true big men. There's one every once in a while, but we don't really have a lot of big men. And so if you're under 6'5", 6'4", I don't know, man. I'm trying to explain it to these guys that like they've got to up their intensity. I've asked you this before in a text message. I remember, like, what do you got to do if you're under 6'2"? And I remember you mentioned that you've got to be a dog on defense, or you've got to be able to shoot lights out from the outside. You've just got to be a dog. Like, and so I guess I'll ask you the question again so that people can hear it. Like, what do you have to do? Because there's a million of them. There's a million guards out there trying to find places, whether it be junior college or whatever. Every single year, these 18-year-olds are coming out of high school trying to find a spot to play. What do you got to do to try to separate yourself and actually make a statement?
Yeah, well, I literally just had this meeting or this conversation with our guys. We had our spring meeting 3 weeks after the tournament. We get going again. And so we have 9 returning players. And I looked right at them and said, hey, there is a lot of opportunity for people to, quote unquote improve their roles next year. We graduate 4 starters. We graduate 7 seniors, right? And I said, but think about this. It's not about experience that's going to get you on the court in our rotation. It's not. Experience can help you, but that's not what's just going to get you on the court, right? It's not about if you bench press 300 pounds, but you need to lift, right? Because that's going to help you. For us, what it's about is this. You got to be able to statistically compete. You got to do something at a national championship level. That's part of it. That's one. And then 1A is you have to be able to connect the team. So let me dive into this a little bit. So you're a 6-foot guard, okay? Well, what does a national championship team need? We've actually broken these stats down. So maybe figuring out what you need to be able to do is looking at the junior college league you're going to or the team you're going to and saying, okay, who plays on their team? Who wins championships in their league? And what does that look like? We know for a fact that it takes 48% field goal to score or to win a national championship. So no matter what your size is, how are you going to score on average around 48%, right? What does that look like? What's your layup package? What if you only shoot threes? What if you only shoot 35% from 3? Well, can I play you? Right? So figuring out what do you do to help win a championship? Now that's how you get in our rotation. Getting to college could be a different storyline, but rebounding, distributing, we need 2 elite distributors on our team. And to be honest with you, I don't care how tall they are. I just need them to distribute at an assist to turnover ratio of a 3-to-1, 4-to-1, right? So it's not like your size and strength is part of your journey, but who can do it statistically? And then this is where I think kids miss the boat all the time in good college programs. Yes, you might be able to do it statistically, but if your teammates don't trust you, enjoy playing with you, if they don't vibe with you, then what's the point of having those stats out there? As a coach, I got to figure out the best team. And so you hope that your student athletes will learn how to grow, mature, and be a great teammate as well. So as you're always balancing that. But, we have 2 guys in our program Stratton Rogers and Caden Handren, who never shot threes. They don't shoot threes. They played so many minutes because they could flow in offense. They could create shots for other guys. They could rebound. They could defend the best player on the other team. Their teammates trusted them and enjoyed their company and wanted them to be on the court. So here we found guys that don't shoot, and then teams would not guard them. And so that would create an interesting dynamic for us. And we actually got better learning how to manipulate, how other teams guarded them. So my point is you may not be a great ball handler, and yes, you need to get better, but do something else really, really well at a national championship level, and you can probably get yourself on the court type deal.
That's so awesome, man. I think my boss at my full-time job actually literally today at the time of this recording asked me to start thinking a little bit more. I said, hey, what do I need to do to learn stuff that the VP of marketing does,
Sure.
The director of marketing. I was like, I want to learn some stuff that you need to do. He goes, well, one, you need to learn Microsoft Excel a little bit better because that's one thing. But he said critically thinking, critical analysis. And he goes, thinking deeper than surface level. And so what he encouraged me to do was looking into some of our organic traffic data and then really looking into some things and understanding it. It took me a little bit today. And I think if to liken this to what you just said, Colby, I guess for the kids, you knew the stats. You need a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. You need 48% from the field. How does that look? The stats. And so what I would encourage the kids to do is do what my boss told me today. You got to think a little bit deeper than surface level. So it might take some time to go research what the championship team and program in that division or that conference did and what their point. You got to study the guard, find out who it was, what were their statistics. You're going to have to go online. You're going to have to find it. You're going to maybe have to watch film. But those are the things you have to do. Just like I have to do it in my job if I want to progress and get better. Those are the things you got to do if you want to be part of a program. Sometimes you got to do the dirty work. It's not just going to fall in your lap, especially nowadays. So highlight packages. I'm curious your thoughts on these. Kids have highlight packages on social media and they're posting them all over the place. How much credibility do you give to that as a coach and a recruiter? If there is some, cool. And if not, what's your recommendation for kids because you're in the AAU scene too, and I'm curious, like, do you give more credibility to going to camps, or do you think AAU is the best option, or is it a mixture of a couple of different things? I just want to know your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of highlights. I don't and I don't see it much anymore, to be honest, which I think is a good thing. I think the culture has grown a ton in terms of how to send information, but what I don't see is people sending full games much. And to be honest with you, nobody in college basketball has a lot of time to watch a full game. It's not a joy of mine to spend 1 hour of my day watching an entire full game. So I think the highlight is the way to go, no question. 4, 5, 6 minutes, detailed. Not so much about what kind of music and did you hit your shot right when the drum, hit. Like, that's not as much what we need. What we need is like details in terms of, okay, show me you can drive right. Show me you can drive left. Show me you can shoot off catch and shoot. Show me you can shoot off the move. Show me you can shoot off the move or bounce. Now, that's only if you can do those things, right? Don't show me that if that's not necessarily your game, right? Show me what you do best, and how you do it different ways. I want to see that you can rebound, that you can guard, right? And I think that clip tape just needs to be enough to get my attention that I'm gonna do more research, right? And so don't get too consumed about making it a perfect tape or whatever. But at the beginning of that tape, you do want to have the things that you do that can help a team win at a high level, right? That's what we're talking about, is like, okay, if I need a shooter, I want to see in the first 5 clips that you can shoot. If I need a rebounder, I want to see that at some point in your clip tape. I do think this too. I think we're always looking for a return on our investment with events. We spend money, we go to a camp, we spend money, we go to a tournament, and it is a lot of financial requirement to do a lot of things that not everybody has, right? I think the point of view of doing those things is the more people you meet, the more you network, the more that people that know you, that's going to help you in your process, right? Because I'm going to be at a tournament this next weekend, and I'm going to be talking to people I know. Maybe I haven't seen them for 6 months, but I know them for 10 years because I've been at tournaments with them. And we're going to be talking about, what do we need here at the College of Idaho? And they're going to say, oh, I just had this kid at this camp that I ran down in California, and here's his information, right? And so you just never know how people are going to share information. So I think being willing to just go out and do camps, do some things, right? I've heard this too. People don't want to play AAU because of whatever their reason is. They don't like certain things. Well, that's fine, but now you're missing a networking opportunity where people are going to share information, right? Totally understand if the finances aren't there, but if they are, I encourage you to get out there and just try some things, because people will network and share your information.
So to that point, how often is it though, Colby, that like a coach talks to another coach? Like you mentioned that example, but do you talk to other coaches? You talk to say, hey, like I saw this kid, or I'm coaching this kid. We don't have any spots, but might be something for you. Like, how often does that actually happen? Because I tell my kids that it happens because I've talked to a couple of junior college coaches, but I actually want to know from a coach's perspective, if that's the coach is telling me that's what they do, or if it's actually real.
Well, just today, I had an AAU coach text me and ask me if I had seen one of his guys, and then he let me know that we're going to be at the same tournament in 2 weeks. So boom, I've logged it away. I'll make sure that I go out of my way just to at least catch a half of that game, just to see who he's talking about, because I know the guy, I know the program he runs. I know that they share some of the similar cultural things that we want in our program. So I do want to see his guys, right? And then a couple hours later, I get a text message from a Power 5 assistant coach who's a mentor of mine, and he's asking me questions about guys in the portal, that I have nothing to do with. Like, College of Idaho is like, we're on 2 different levels of the guys he's talking about, but he's asking me because I'm a West Coast guy. I'm in Idaho. I happen to know maybe some of these guys he's talking about. So he just wants my information. So 2 totally different spectrums there. Just happened to me today. So yeah, we're always sharing information.
Okay. That's good. I hope those who are listening, you heard it from the guy himself. Straight from the horse's mouth is what they always say. Like, it's not just my opinion, and they always think that I'm lying. They're like, oh, it's just you. That's just you talking. I'm like, no, that's what the coaches told me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool. No, that's awesome, Colby. I want to ask you like 2 more questions before we wrap it up. One, you're looking back, like just in your coaching career thus far, it's so cool to watch your success, man. Like, and then I got to shout out Robert McPherson, Cherry Films. Dude, there was a tournament game at home. I think it might've been the last home game you had. But dude, he had the sickest edit of like you getting crazy in the locker room, just going, and it just was hitting. It's awesome. I just love your passion. The last 5 years, I've thoroughly enjoyed watching clips and coverage. So shout out to Ty Spangenberg and Cherry Films, Robert McPherson, for them covering a lot, and all the other guys that do it too, all the guys and girls that cover the program, but I know them very closely. So it's been fun to watch. But I want to know, what is the biggest life lesson that coaching has taught you in your time with the program? You're very passionate, won a lot of championships, won some awards, but what's the biggest life lesson that it's taught you?
Yeah, I think one thing really comes to mind. It's been on the forefront for me for maybe the last year or two here. But previous to the national championships, I read books like crazy. We're all reading books as coaches, self-help books, novels, whatever you're reading, and I'm constantly studying championships. And every chapter I read, they're always talking about how this team achieved success because they connected on a deeper level. And I'm reading that and I'm like, well, I'm in. What do we got to do? I want to win. I want to win the championship. Like, let's connect on a deeper level, And it's just not that simple. It's not that easy. And so you're reading it and you're like, man, I don't know if I can ever get there. And then lo and behold, our program has found success, 2 national championships in the last 3 years. And I look back and I think what this whole journey has taught me is that just as much as I demand my players need to get vulnerable and be on a mission in their life to be the best version of themselves, I've got to be on that same mission, right? And I've found that the more vulnerable I've gotten with our team, the more focused I've gotten on my own improvement, whether that be, I know you get your workouts in every day. I'm trying to be much better with my health, my workouts, my nutrition, my rest time, to and the more I do that, the better we get as a program, because I become more vulnerable, which then our players become more vulnerable, and we just connect at a deeper level. Right. And so, you get into coaching and you get this head job and you think, I'm going to coach them. And really it should be like, oh shoot, I'm about to get my whole life exposed. And I'm going to go through this absolute roller coaster of just getting better every day. And when you do that, I think that's when you really find your best success.
Man, I appreciate you sharing that and being willing to share that. So you've had all this success, Colby. You've seen it up till now. You've had ups and downs, I'm sure, and you're working on things yourself, and you're working on all this. And I know you probably don't know the answer to this, but where would you like to see yourself in whether it be coaching or life in the next 5 years? Because it's been about 5 years, almost 4.5 since we talked the last time. A lot of things have happened, but where would you like to see yourself in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, goal number one is to prove to myself, to prove to our program, our community, that we can sustain this success. Like, I'm already fired up about next year. We've got 7 incoming freshmen, 7 18-year-olds are coming in here next year, and they're going to be the returning national champions, right? And they're going to have that target on their back. I am fired up to figure out, how do we handle that success? How do we take on those pressures? Because we're talented. We can still have success, but we got to be super aware of what's going to happen to us as we go on our journey next year. So in 5 years, I want to look back and say, man, we really handled that success well. Those 2 national championships. Look what we've done since, right? We've got players that are happy, that have grown a ton, that have become some of the best players in the country, that are great teammates. We've added on to the history of this program. So that's definitely a challenge and a goal. But I think to be able to do that, for me personally, as one of the guys who's driving the bus in this program every day, I've got to keep getting better myself. And that means continuing to focus on my health. And I don't say like focus on my health as a bad thing. Like, that's such a positive thing. I want to be able to enjoy this journey. Like when I look back in 5 years from now, I want to say, man, we took on a lot of pressure by winning those 2 national championships. And I actually enjoyed the last 5 years more than I ever thought. You know, my connection with those guys and our ability to get them to grow and handle all the ups and downs was even better in the last 5 years than it has ever been in my career. Like that's the ultimate goal. So I'm pretty fired up to figure that out.
Dude, that's so cool. No doubt you're going to figure it out, though. It's like that's what you are. It's ingrained in you. But I love that you have that mentality. It's a growth mindset. It's always continuously trying to find ways to improve and figure it out. It's like a puzzle piece, you know? I freaking love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, man, this guy right here is probably the only person that I know that can convince people to move to Caldwell, Idaho. No shade being thrown there, but I'm telling you guys, I had this conversation at work about Caldwell. I love it. Love everybody there if you live there, but it's just funny because like there's just this thing. I'm like, one of the best schools in the whole entire state is in Caldwell. It's $35,000, $36,000 to go there per year. And somehow Coach Colby Blaine has found a way to like, people want to go there, dude, because of you. So I think it's really, really cool. I actually think it's awesome. I was mainly just kidding on that whole front, but it is awesome. And Colby, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining me again for the show and taking the time out of your busy schedule, but sharing your insights with us. So thank you so much, man.
You bet, Shane. I'm going to look into your eligibility. If you've got some left, don't be shocked if I'm not recruiting you this spring or summer. I think you'd be a great player here for us. So.
48% from the field. I mean, I only do shoot threes anymore, but I was 47% in high school. So I was pretty close. I think I could still contribute.
Yeah, I think you could do something at a national championship level, but I sure appreciate you having me on, and I'm going to hold you to it. We're going to get back on here in 5 years from now, and we're going to recap where we've both gone. So appreciate you.
Can't wait, man. Appreciate you. For all those listening, make sure to tune in, subscribe to the show because we'll be coming to you next week with another one. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.